Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Green and White podcast, brought to you by the award-winning Argyle Life. Now, the eagle-eyed, or should it be eagle-eared, if that's a term, amongst you will notice that I'm neither Aaron nor Joe. I got their names out eventually. I had to remember who usually hosts this. No, I'm neither of those. No, tonight my name is Adam, as it is every day, and my job, for what I'm reliably informed will be the next hour or so, is to try and convince you that the words "thriller minute 1-1 draw with Wycombe Wanderers" do belong next to each other. So wish me the best of luck. It is me. It's the first time hosting, and I have predictably no idea what I'm doing. But fear not, because I have been given a simple tool to ensure this runs as smoothly as possible. And speaking of which, Sam Down, how are you?
Yeah, off mute. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Adam.
Glad to hear. Now, the next one's a little bit embarrassing for me because I actually saw Graham yesterday and wished him a happy new year on the assumption that we would not be speaking again until 2026. And here we are this evening, still 2025. Graham, how's things?
Next question.
Oh, that's what we like. Yeah, I hear someone might be due a rant this evening. It may not be the person you expect, but we'll see. We'll see. Before that, Sam, make my job as easy as possible. You're back. It's your run through. Plymouth Argyle 1, Wycombe Wanderers 1. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it doesn't do anything to convince me that the revival we saw in December is not going the same way as the revival we saw in September, which is some signs of promise, followed, concluding in a very good away win in which we win by 4 goals, followed by then an immediate downturn in form in which we take 1 point from the next 2 home games, which is what happened after the Burton 4-0 win. It's what happened after the Doncaster 5-1 win, followed by like a run of largely away games in a month, although, unlike last time, not wholly away games. So it doesn't do anything, I'm afraid, to convince me that the December run wasn't a flash in the pan, similar to what the September run was after the dismal performance against Reading. But to be fair, I'm glad we got the last-minute goal. Obviously, our chairman at the fan forum made it very, very clear that unless things went absolutely catastrophically wrong, Cleverley was going to be given the entirety of the January transfer window and maybe a little bit of time into February to see what he can do with a new squad of players. He's not going to be sacked, probably even if we lose the next 5 games, I wouldn't have thought. So given that he's not going to be sacked anyway, it's better that we scrape the points together than not. I sort of saw some people saying, did that goal save Cleverley's job? To which I replied, no, absolutely not. He was nowhere near going anyway. I don't think. So, yeah, we should be thankful that we got that point. First half, yeah, very poor. Wycombe got in behind early in the first 10 minutes. They definitely started the better of the 2 teams. You could really feel a goal was coming, and it did. Cross comes in from their right-hand side, our left. Joe Edwards completely out-jumped for the header. He wanted a foul. I don't think it was a foul. I think it would have been very soft if that had been given. He was asking for a foul, but I think he was just, outdone for height. But Conor Hazard should come and claim it before it even gets to that physical contest. It's prime in the keeper's zone to come and collect the ball. He doesn't come and collect it. We're 1-0 down. Wycombe have another couple of half-decent chances, and we're thinking at this point, could this be a repeat of Reading where we just completely fold? To our credit, we didn't really do that. We did at least do the last-ditch defending quite well. It was still ultimately a very, very poor first half performance. I think we had 1 shot, 2 shots, because there was one right at the end of the half as well. But we had 2 shots in the entire first half, neither of which were particularly strong chances at all. There was the one that was the Pepple block shot from angled, and then there was the one right deep in the stoppage time at the end of the first half, which my memory escapes exactly what happened in that chance, but it wasn't a particularly strong one. So 2 chances that probably could both at best be termed half chances, and nothing really apart from that. Wycombe very dominant. We came out second half, we were better. Still not great, but we were better. We gradually edged our way into the game. Mumba, from about the same distance, same angle as his famous Exeter goal, decides to absolutely let rip with the ball, bounces onto the bar from the better part of 35 yards out. Obviously, he had no right to score from there, but he very nearly did. It was fine margins. It was just the bar, denied him what would have been undoubtedly goal of the season. And I think, to be fair, just that audaciousness, the fact he had that good shot from a position that he shouldn't have possibly been able to score from and nearly did, that sort of just breathed a bit of life into us, a bit of energy into the team. It got the crowd up, it got the players up. Mumba was then involved in our next chance of any note, which was the short routine from the short corner where he passed it to Amici. He found a bit of space, curling shot, well saved by the Wycombe keeper. And I think our best chance came, it was somewhere in the run of corners. I think it was the third corner where it gets flicked across the box, and Pleguesuelo in quite a bit of room just heads it narrowly wide. Again, not, I don't know whether that would be quite big enough to be classed as an off the big chance or not. Adam could maybe nod and shake his head at that point, but it certainly felt like a big chance. It felt like our best chance of the game, which I think it probably was, up to the goal, of course. And then the most quite remarkable set of substitutions I think I've ever seen. When we were chasing a goal in the 82nd minute, who do we see stripping off on the touchline? 2 centre backs, and I think everybody around us has had their head in their hands, moaning, shaking their heads, whatever. We brought on 2 defenders, and I thought, well, what on earth is happening here? Because one of them was I think it was a like for like, but then Boateng came off, who was a midfielder. So in theory, we were loading the defence. You think we were 1-0 up, but of course, how did we resolve it? By putting Mitchell up front in what seemed to be a 4-2-4 is how I can describe it. Because it was obviously the back four, as you'd expect: Such, Ross, Pleggy, and Sorinola, I think. And
Pleggy went off.
Yeah, you're right. Who did? So it was Such, Ross, Sorinola, and who was the other centre back? I can't think now. Wirrady was in midfield. Let me very briefly, very professionally here consult the lineup, because I'm sure
where are you putting Joe Edwards in all of this?
No, that's right. Edwards stayed on. You're right. I had it in my head that Edwards went off, but it was Edwards that stayed on. You are quite right. So yeah, it was effectively a back four of thank you for rescuing me, of Edwards, Ross, Such, and Sorinola. It was then a midfield 2 of kind of Mumba and Wirradu, sort of, and then it was almost a front 4 of Mitchell and Pepple as the central strikers, with almost Tolai and Finn as like wide strikers. So it was a 4-2-4. Did it work? And I guess you have to say on some level it did, because we got an equalising goal. I think it was a bit more luck than judgment, in the sense that although, yes, it did get us a goal, we actually created probably less from open play after we made the subs as opposed to before. Because ultimately, from completely bypassing the midfield, we had a sort of a 4-2-4 with only 2 midfielders, which was Mumba and Wirradu. Mumba was kind of an auxiliary attacker, and Wirradu was an auxiliary centre back, because what we effectively did in reality was bypass the midfield, and it was just long balls over the top every time. And ultimately, yes, there's nothing wrong with going a little bit direct, but when you just completely bypass the midfield to the point where there virtually isn't one, it limits our ability to create chances. Now, yes, it's easy to say, oh, well, it must have worked because it got us a goal, but the subs were made in the 82nd minute, with stoppage time, which it was the 95th minute the goal went in. So it was still kind of 13 minutes when nothing happened because of those subs we made. We kind of fluked ourselves a corner, and then we got the big man up and scored from the corner, which, so yes, it kind of worked, but I don't think I'm being unnecessarily obstinate to say I think it was a bit more luck than judgment that it did work. And yeah, obviously the corner comes in. Great delivery, to be fair. I thought it was Hazard's goal at first. Looking it back now in slow-mo, you can see it doesn't actually touch Hazard's head. Pepple nods it. Well, I say nods it in. I don't think he did nod it in at all. He nodded it to the general vicinity of the goal line, and it was given a goal. Yeah, we'll take it. Was it a deserved point? I think you have to say probably just about, but that's only because Wycombe in the second half were dreadfully poor. Wycombe in the second half were as bad as we were in the first. Two bad teams on the day, quite frankly. It was a horrible sort of scummy League One game to watch. Ball up one end of the pitch to the other, rugby kind of play. Wycombe time wasting probably worse than they ever did under Ainsworth. It was just a miserable, cold night and a miserable game of football to watch. And I won't be rushing back to watch the full match replay anytime soon. Did we deserve a draw? Yes, probably, but only because it was two poor teams. And that is the end of my rather long run through.
Oh, well played. You'll hear no complaints from me. And I imagine the full match replay, if you like, will be reserved for Mother's Day next year. Yeah, we'll let you decide on that one. Graham, as I mentioned, we did meet before the game, and I know you mentioned while we were there that you didn't want to see us play 4-4-2 at home as much as it had worked away, particularly after what we saw in the Reading game, albeit in different circumstances with the red cards. We did go for the 4-4-2, albeit with some enforced changes both in the midfield and indeed Owen Aseni very early on picking up an injury. What did you make of the lineup? And having got an idea of what your answer might be, what would you have done differently in that lineup to ensure that we're a force at home as well as just away from home?
Well, the lineup was probably as expected, to be fair, given Rules was absent. I think it's a one game ban, I think he's got. So
yeah, it should be back.
So Wiradu in for him was the obvious choice. So as expected. But the point I want to make is in a 4-4-2 at home, we have to come out. We have to get more on the front foot. And that's where our weakness is. And I just point to the height of our defence. We've only got one player over 6 foot, which is Mitchell. We've got 5'8" fullback on one side, 5'8" fullback on the other side. And Plegg is only 5'11". And in fairness, was probably not at his best because I don't think he was fully fit. Wycombe, by contrast, all of their players in the back line are 6 foot plus 6'4", and they even brought on a 6'6" substitute. And that's the issue. Physically and height-wise, we can't compete and we don't compete. And that was witnessed the first goal. We were too easily done on our left-hand side. I think it was Talai and Aseni between them seemed to let the Grimmer free to cross it. That cross went over two central defenders, and I think Joe Edwards. And the bloke just steamed in. Hazard was rooted on his line when perhaps it was 6 yards out. Any keeper worth his salt could see the danger and come and claim that. It wasn't a whipped-in cross. It was just a cross that we should be able to defend, and we didn't. And you thought, oh no, here we go. And then Aseni got injured, which meant Pepple came on. And in a 4-4-2, when you've got one player who's more back to goal, trying to hold the ball up and bring other people into play, which Pepple didn't, in honesty, do very well, it just fell apart. That first half, and I've seen some dreadful halves of football in Home Park over the years. I go right back to David Kemp when neither of you were probably even born. But it was miserable. I just sat there with my arms folded, just seeing it in front of me and just shaking my head in dismay.
The Argyle manager at my birth was Peter Shilton, so yeah, it would have been just after Kemp. That.
All right. But it was dreadful. There wasn't, I call it a heartbeat moment. There wasn't, perhaps, I think, Sam, you missed out the Wiradu header at the far post when he came in at the far post of the cross.
Oh,
which he
yeah, that was
put it across, which when I looked at and I couldn't face the full match replay, the extended highlights was as far as I could go. It was a chance, in fairness, it was a chance. But anyway, first half was terrible. Second half, unaccountably, Wycombe, who had that game taken for it was there for the taking. It was there for the taking. And they just sat back, think they could defend the 1-0, played all the dark arts, which let's be honest, was one of the worst. To see players sit down and then not get the trainer on, I think that happened at least 3 times. And that's something that's got to be stopped, because they sat down, stopped the play, ref goes over, no, I'm okay, carries on. But it's an interruption. They should go off. If you sat down and injured, you're off 30 seconds, and that hopefully will stop it. But gradually we got back into it, and in fairness, from our set pieces, ironically, we were pretty dangerous. From the Amici, I mean, there was shocking defending by Wycombe to let Amici have that shot at goal, which I was right behind. That was going in, and the keeper, who we all thought was pretty dodgy, actually turned out to make a really good diving, full-length diving save. The Pleggy one was, again, I was right behind it. I think that was a really missed chance. He headed it effectively straight at the keeper. He pushed it over the bar. And then the equalising goal. I thought Hazard scored it personally. It was such mayhem. And whether it crossed the line, I mean, it's not convincing, let's be honest, because if you look at where Casey is standing on the line, he's probably 6 inches to a foot behind the line, and he heads it forward. So whether the whole ball went over the line, I don't know. But it was an equaliser, and on the second half performance, we deserved it. But, I mean, I can only reflect. Going up to Reading, the Reading game before it started, we got 2 home games, 2 full capacity Argyle crowds, and boy, have they let us down. Have they let us down? You know, we Doncaster, euphoric 5-1. We're on a roll. We've had a good December. Tom Cleverley has secured his job by getting the number of points that he did. If you remember, I think he was talking about 10 games to the window, and Derek Adams said very much the same. So we get to the window, which is effectively the Stevenage game, and he's got enough points to safeguard him right through probably to the end of the season, unless we fall apart towards the end of it, like we have done in previous seasons. So Cleverley's here for the future, and we've got to make the best of it. But now is the big test. What is the window going to be like? What players are we going to get? Are we going to get height and physicality? Because what I can't understand is Tom Cleverley was in post 13th of June, I think it was. He had 11 weeks before the end of the window to sort his team out. 6 of those weeks he didn't sign anybody. And it was obvious to anybody that's seen League One before, height and physicality is the name of the game. It isn't passing out for the back, and we haven't got it. We haven't got that in our team. And Derek, David Fox and Tom between them have got to recruit height and physicality if we are going to avoid being a relegation scrap come April, May.
Certainly seems it, yeah. And as you say, Graham, that transfer window is fast approaching. We're just a few days away from the Stevenage game, the 1st of January, and it certainly feels like there's a lot of work to do. And a lot of love in the comments for what you've said there, Graham, but particularly on the physicality and how we can be outmatched by teams that, you know, your classic League One cloggers, if you like, and the way that Wycombe play. We know how well Wycombe tend to play, and there we are. Well, I'm going to keep this comment from David Style on screen and come back to you, Sam, because the point at the end there, never scoring first at home. I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but we're now halfway through the season. We've played 23 games. I believe we have been leading at half-time in 2 of those games. At home, I should say. 2 home games where we've been leading at half-time. Rotherham. Yeah.
Were we Wigan? We went 1-0 up, but that was in the second half.
Yeah.
And Blackpool
second half. Scored an equaliser, and then So
and Wimbledon, we went 1-0 up in the first half, but they equalised
by half-time.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. Yeah.
It's a common theme, right? I mean, what are we doing wrong? I guess is my open question to you. Is there any way that we can fix that issue immediately? Because as I said, it's happening time and time again at home, and atmospheres are getting worse, and crowds are going to drop, right?
Well, yeah, I think we're already seeing that they are dropping. That Bradford game in particular, you could really just look around and see the empty seats. And yes, even though maybe it was kind of, very near to sold out in terms of who actually paid for their seat, because many of it will just be season ticket holders who didn't turn up and didn't put it on the exchange. It was certainly nowhere remotely close to sold out in terms of who actually came to their seat. You could see vast swathes of empty seats all across for that Bradford game, even for the Rotherham game. A little bit less so, but still a lot of empty seats. Now, naturally, at the minute, that's not going to pose the club too much of a problem financially because, frankly, that money is already in the bag, that's season ticket holders. But it certainly could pose them a very big problem when renewal time comes around, because I cannot see for a moment that anybody who's on that waiting list is not going to have a chance to get it this summer. Because I think there's going to be a lot who won't renew, a lot who sort of came to the club in the height of the low Schumacher positive era, riding that crest of a wave, stayed for the championship, stayed through relegation in the hope that it would get better, in the hope that we could do, what we did for League Two, only a level upwards, do it in League One, go down to League One and compete at the top end, as we were promised that we would be able to do. And obviously it's not happened just due to a number of factors, but largely down to misspend of the budget. I think now it'll be sort of a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me scenario for a lot of fans. And, I'm sure all of us will renew because we're the diehards or mugs or whatever other word you want to call it. We're the ones who will keep going no matter what, even if we're right at the bottom of the conference. But we have to accept that a lot of fans just are not like that. A lot of fans will go or not go based on the performance level of the team. And I think, we will, if it does continue to be bad, we will see a lot of empty seats between now and the end of the season. That probably won't hugely harm the club in that regard because, like I did, much of the money will already be in the bank, but it will still harm them slightly in the sense that match day revenue will be down on what they were projecting. So that could have a detrimental impact. And when it comes round to renew, it's absolutely going to be a big problem when it comes to renewing season tickets because some people won't renew. Yes, there is a waiting list, and naturally some people on the waiting list will fill the gap, but it's a very different thing to put your name on a waiting list, to have a phone call. Oh, by the way, you can get a ticket if you want. It's a whole different thing again to actually then commit to spending £505 to go to every game, certainly if we're in League Two.
Presuming that is the price and doesn't rise again, right?
Yeah. I don't think that stupid to rise it again, but who knows? But yeah, I don't think that there's going to be many people who will commit to doing that. Now, obviously, that's not to say that it's going to suddenly drop to the days of 6,000 or 7,000. I don't think that's going to happen at all. But I think season ticket renewals, certainly if we go down to League Two, will, and maybe even if we're in League One, but it carries on this badly, goes below. I think it's very possible season ticket renewals will go below 10,000. And then at that point, we're then down to if it's 9,500 season ticket holders, it then comes down to how well are we doing in the league because the shall we say the more, I don't want to use the word casual fans because that sounds a bit derogatory, but the more occasional fans, if you like, will not go if we're struggling or if we're mid-table. I think football at the top of the league will bring fans wherever we are. And I actually think, ironically, we'll probably have a much higher average attendance if we're at the top of League Two next season than what we would if we're in the middle or lower mid-table of League One. But yeah, crowds are dropping. We are going to see that in season tickets when they inevitably come out. Because I think, unless we go on a miraculous run and we're, flirting with the playoffs, which I don't think for a minute is very likely, I think we are going to see a big drop off. And then it just comes down to, will there be enough people on the waiting list to make up for it and to match this season's sales? And I don't think there will be. And it just then comes down to, after that, are they going to make the decision that I think probably should be made about Tom Cleverley? Yes, he had a good run, but if he sort of, scrapes us to 18th, 19th, yes, fair enough, we stayed up. But does that mean he's the right man going forward? Probably not. And then I think that decision, whether they sack Cleverley, whether they keep him, will be pivotal to how many season tickets are sold and how many fans are at the club. So, that was a bit of a long-winded answer, which kind of boils down to, I don't know, and it depends on what happens next, but the potential is there for a very, very big drop-off of the likes that we haven't seen since probably like the John Sheridan era, maybe, or the back end of the Derek Adams era.
Oh, that's a lovely cheery thought.
Yeah,
I'll come to you, Graham. Just I was going to let you have your say on that. And just after that, my question towards you, that's hopefully going to bring a bit more positivity towards what's happening this evening after the horrors we've just heard from Sam, which I don't disagree with, but there we are. Is how satisfying was it that goal went in at the end of the game? Now, after you've had your conversation on the crowd, and it was a Wycombe Wanderers team who dropped points in stoppage time after time wasting.
Yeah, I unequivocally, to get a point when we thought it was beyond us, and in the manner that it happened. Pity in a way that Hazard didn't actually score it, because that would have given us even more elation in the moment. Although I think half the ground thought he had scored it the way that he ran away. But I'm just grateful for Bim Pepple's shoulder, because that's what it went off. He even missed the header, in fairness. It came off his shoulder. But anyway, it sort of went in. I just want to address what Sam's saying, and this is why I'm so frustrated. We had 3 wins in a row after Doncaster. We had the real opportunity to make a statement. If we'd got 6 points from the 2, what I will determine as winnable home games against 2 mid-table teams, where would we be now? And we would be looking with half an eye on the playoffs. I think we'd be probably 11th or 12th, given our goal difference, something like that.
Don't forget, we are only in reality we are only 3 points off 9th. So if we'd have won,
there's some teams that play one game, 8. But we would. The momentum of 5 wins in a row and being mid-table, remarkable recovery. I don't care if we'd won both games 1-0 and been scrappy. It was momentum, it was points. And we've chucked it away. We chucked it away with Joe Rawls and the sending off, and Tulai with a penalty. And we chucked it away with an abysmal first half performance where we were lucky not to be more than 1-0 down. And if you look at the crowd, were they entertained? Was there many moments of entertainment in the game yesterday? Really, the Mumba shot,
certainly not in the first half.
Shot. First half, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. Second half, we got a little bit of momentum. I think it turned when Mumba had that 30-yarder that clipped the bar, and suddenly even he sort of grew in a bit more confidence. And look, game on, it looked as though we were going to get a goal, despite all the dark arts that we can use it. But my frustration is lost opportunity. And now we've got ages before we get that opportunity back again. We had, Boxing Day is a game when people from all around the country come and visit the family, come to the game, and possibly even with the Wycombe game as well. And all those people travelling all that distance and witnessing what they saw and what they saw again last night, that's what I find. That's what I'm struggling with. And we're all going to say, well, Cleverley should go. Tom Cleverley is not going. He will not be leaving this football club. And Sam said the decision maker now is Derek Adams. He's the director of football. He's been brought in. And just listen to the comments that Derek has said about Tom. I won't have to reiterate them. But so we are in for the distance with Tom Cleverley, which is why the next 4 weeks plus in the window and the acquisition of players are going to be so critical. And I do worry. I mean, the numbers have changed. It was 4 in, 4 out. Then Tom talked about 2 or 3 in. Then we got loans. One thing just as a point, I've noticed Derek Adams, I think, has been at every game, hasn't he? So if he's the head of recruitment looking for players, wouldn't you have expected him to be looking at players playing in the run up to the window? Just a thought. I assume David Fox is doing it on his behalf. But if you're head of recruitment,
that's encouraging after the summer.
Well, that's why I'm trying to be optimistic, and I normally am optimistic. But my balloon has been pricked, if you see what I mean. It's just, I'm not often lost for words, but I was lost for words going home last night.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you, Graham. And I think the worst part almost feels as though it's not the first time this has happened where it just feels like, I mean, as Sam, I think you mentioned, the last time we won by 4 goals away from home, we then immediately started off with a terrible run of form, and it looks like
not only that, but also it was the 4 going away from home, followed by 2 home games in a row in which we got 1 draw and 1 loss.
Yeah,
followed by then a run of largely away games. It is eerily similar, isn't it? It's worryingly similar.
Worryingly so, yeah. And it's well, we live in hope, but I don't blame anybody who feels their balloon has been pricked, if that's the way we're putting it, based on what's happened over the last 2 at such a time of the season. Now, I am going to release my inner Joe Bell here and start a little bit of a ref watch. I can't imagine it'll be too long, except for one particular incident that probably worth a bit of discussion. And I've thought best about who I can ask this question to, in the knowledge that I'm not entirely keen for a 20-minute lecture on perspective and camera angles and anything like that. So with that in mind, I'll bite the bullet. Sam Down, did we score a legitimate goal yesterday?
I don't think so, no. I don't think so. I think with some of the examples that have caused many arguments between me, with Joe and John, and even you at times on this podcast, it's been much more contentious cases where it looks like it very much has crossed the line. But with the famous Gary Neville clip that went viral with him, with the golf ball and the camera angle, a lot of those occasions, like that famous Coventry game, I would argue it didn't actually fully go out. Very close. But I accept that at least in those examples when we spoke about, like the Spain-Japan game at the World Cup, Adam, a game you were actually at, I accept that even though it didn't go out, it very much at least looked like it went out in live play. That goal yesterday, I don't even think really particularly looked like it went over the line. I was over in block 16, and I just thought, he cleared it off the line. There wasn't even like, maybe. It wasn't even that. It was just like, damn it. Oh, wait, he's given a goal. Like, it wasn't even on my radar that it might have crossed the line. Now, I know that some people in block 8, block 9 are a little bit more bullish about it, are a little bit more saying they feel it did go over the line, or at least certainly was very close. Having watched it back on the replay, I think it's about a yard behind the line, but crucially, he's leaning forward. Like, you head a ball, you don't head a ball like that, do you? You head a ball like that. The audio listeners are never going to get that, are they? But
I'm not going to audio describe either, I'm afraid.
No, your posture heading a ball is forward leaning. So yes, he was a yard behind the line, but he was leaning forward whilst doing so. So was the whole of the ball over the whole of the line? I think absolutely not, in my view. I think at least a large proportion of the ball, maybe even all of the ball, was still overhanging the line. And I think it was a very lucky decision that we got given. That being said, I do think that we've probably had more bad luck than we've had good with refereeing decisions on balance this season. Even the famous Northampton shambles, they should have had a man off at 0-0. I think Bradford, there was something in the Bradford game. Maybe we could have had a penalty at 0-0. I can't quite remember. You've got the Wiradoo second yellow for diving at Lincoln that could so easily have been given a penalty, or at the very least shouldn't have been given a red card. And you've got the Barnsley opening day, catastrophe. So I do think on balance, we've probably had slightly more bad luck than we've had good with refereeing this season. Not to defend our performances that's still been bad, but I think we have had slightly more bad luck than good with refereeing. But that was very much one to put into the good luck column, because I don't think it crossed the line. Yes, it may have been some of the ball was overhanging the green of the goal line, but I think at least part of the ball was overhanging the white of the line itself. So yeah, got lucky, but we'll take it. It's karmic justice for Wycombe for many years of time wasting late in games, conning referees, faking injuries. So I'm not going to feel guilty about it at all. Not that I would anyway, but definitely not with Wycombe.
No, good. Now you shouldn't, and you will not be surprised that those comments have caused a stir in our own comments section, with people agreeing and disagreeing with you, Sam. And for what it's worth, I feel like this is for once I'm with you on this one. I was not convinced it crossed the line at all. That's not to say I didn't immediately look to the linesman after it went in to see if he was furiously flagging, which thank goodness he was. Yeah, but I was not fully convinced at all. Graham, any dissenting views? Are you with us?
Where was the assistant referee when he was flagging for a goal? Was he actually close to the corner flag?
To his credit, yeah, he was right in line, and he did have certainly a better position than I did behind the goal anyway. So he'd kept up with it, albeit it shouldn't be particularly difficult to keep up with play from a corner. But yeah, he was there.
I thought he was an excellent assistant referee, to be fair, for making that decision, given the moment. I wouldn't rely on Michael Duff, though, because he didn't think it went in from his position. But equally, he said he didn't think their keeper had any saves to make. And I've gone, what? So his vision of the game is somewhat different. No wonder Joe Bell is so supportive of him. But anyway, we'll push that to one side. I mean, in fairness to the ref, I thought he cope with their time wasting as well as he could do in the circumstances. He dished out enough yellow cards, and my only issue is the player going down and not having a trainer on, and that happened I think 3 times second half, possibly twice, but ironically a couple of them did actually go off injured and were substituted. So I'm not defending them, but it's dark arts, and it made for a miserable watch, apart from the elation of we thought Hazard had scored moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm generally with you. I think it's a referee who's had a decent game in trying circumstances. There was one moment, and I don't know if either of you will have put nearly as much energy into this as I have, for getting annoyed by it. But when Pleguezuelo's header was tipped over the bar, and the referee insisted that the corner must be taken from the other side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
like it went out. Yeah, that was bizarre and wasted a bit of time. I'm sure Wycombe were delighted with us having to switch the ball to the other side. But in the main, good enough. And yeah, maybe as Sam says, it does balance out the numerous decisions we've had this season that have gone against us. I do have more questions. So before I do that, I have to bring this up where Lewis Mitchell here on his YouTube account has given us £1, not left us any comments, not asked Sam, whether what his darts walk on would be, or or what we've had in the past. So nothing for you to do here. But Lewis, we thank you for your £1, and we'll put it to good use, I've no doubt, in 2026. 38 minutes into this now. Thanks so much for everybody who is joining us on my debut and possibly last outing in this chair. We'll see how the reviews come in. We're going to do that standard thing now, and then when I go around the table, and there's only 2 of you here now, where we have 1 player each that you could comment on positively or negatively, depending on what you saw and what your perspective was yesterday. And Sam, I'm going to come to you first. Any player, good or bad, that you want to talk about?
I'm going to break the mold a bit. I'm going to talk about a player both positively and negatively for the same player.
No, knock yourself out.
And I'm going to go Bim Pepple. Because look, he was thrown in, and by the way, I feel we've not really mentioned about Osene's injury. That could be quite a worrying one. A player who was absolutely banging form going into it. That looked a bad one, the way he was moving. I would be surprised if he's not at least a good few weeks. Dare I say it, maybe even a couple of months. Didn't look good at all. Hopefully I'm wrong. But Pepple came on, and you know what? In the first half where we were really poor, I think he was our only positive outlet. He was showing for the ball all the time. He was coming deep to collect the ball when he had to, when Tolai was maybe the one who was staying up top and being there for the ball over the top and gambling for the ball over the top. Pepple was coming deep to link the play and was being quite clever with his movement. Often then when it got reverted and when Tolai was the one who went a bit deeper, Pepple would try and make a good run into the channels and maybe take the defender with him for play to open up a bit more in the middle. So In terms of his kind of game IQ and how he read the game and what he was trying to do, there are some positives to take out of Bim Pepple. And of course, he did, whether you should be a goal or not, did bundle it at least close enough to the line that it was given a goal. So there is that. Unfortunately, I do think he has the first touch of a pinball machine, which we saw a lot of times. When the ball went to his feet, it would often, go flying off in the other direction, and that would just slow the play down because he then would have to go and chase after it, or someone else would have to go and shepherd it in, and sort of that coherence, that sort of cogency of the play that we really wanted from a counter attack or a build up play. Was slightly compromised. So I'll give him credit in the sense that I do feel that he showed a bit more than we maybe thought he was capable of. And he did get the goal. And to be fair to him, he is actually now kind of semi-consistently getting goal contributions. He obviously had the Exeter game in which he was pretty dismal. He had the Mansfield game in which he came on and missed that comedy chance. Then he had a long injury layoff. But either side of those two games, we got a couple of goals, one in the Pizza Cup and one against Burton. And then he got an assist at Doncaster and then a goal against Wycombe. So he is somewhat starting to pull some goal contributions together. So, I guess credit to him for that. But still a long way to go. And I think his first touch is something that leaves a lot to be desired. And I think it does slow the play down at times. So, yeah, mix of positive and negative about Pepple today.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. And if you want to break the mold at any stage in the future, Sam, you feel free. That was excellent. Graham, over to you. Player good or bad, or indeed both, you want to go over?
Well, I think I'm going to do the same as Sam, but I'm going to choose Barley Mumba, who this season has probably been the most disappointing player given the talent we know he has. His last season in League One, he was League One Player of the Year, let's not forget. And he's been pushed from pillar to post in whatever system Tom Cleverley decides to select him in. But all that's done, his confidence is low. He's seemingly unable to make the simplest of passes. His concentration levels are even worse than they used to be. And he's struggling. But that moment when he hit what I call the don't shoot moment, which he went and did, I think it was a good 30 yards, it seemed to lift him. And you could see confidence oozing through his veins. And after that, I thought he was our best player. And he looked dangerous. He was taking people on. I mean, even when we scored after we scored, he had an attack down the left-hand side, cut in. Typical Barley, didn't put the ball to an Argyle player. I think he rather tamely gave it to the keeper. But good to see him getting some confidence. Good to see him sort of being the player that we used to love and hope he can be again. My only comment is I'm not sure he'll be with us come the end of January. I think he'll be moving further north, which is inevitable because every club's further north, so I'm not giving anything.
Unless Truro City are putting in a bid, I think, we can say that'll be fairly certain if he is out the door. If he is, of course, and that is something that, as mentioned earlier, we will soon find out. Now, I'll jump in on this one because I know Joe likes to, and in my hosting role, I'm going to take the spotlight as well and say that Brendan Wiradu yesterday, I thought was one of our more encouraging displays. His having him in his position, I mean, lo and behold, has allowed him to shine a little bit more. He's not always been perfect in midfield, and central defence in a back four certainly didn't seem to suit him. But I genuinely believe he's come into his own in the last few weeks. We've not got we've got a result from yesterday. It's not been the most positive one that we were looking for after the run we were on. But I mean, he was a key part of keeping us in that game and ultimately pushing forward for me to get ourselves back into it. And I usually, I think I've spent the last couple of weeks mentioning when players aren't doing particularly well when looking at their number of duels. So I'll make an exception this one and say that Wiradoo participated or contested in 16 duels yesterday and won 14 of them, which is a seriously good figure and something that hopefully we see more of going forward, particularly against teams like Wycombe, when that physicality is obviously needed. I think there's a lot of praise, and often quite rightly, for Boateng and what he brings physically to the midfield. But clearly, Wiradoo's doing it as well. And I just wonder if he and Rawls at some point can combine together and give us something really worth having in this 4-4-2, if indeed we keep it. Well, I mean, that is 45 minutes in. I think we're just about exhausted what we're going to do with the Wycombe game, but there's a couple of more things on my agenda before we sign off and leave you all to your evenings. First of all, I was on the podcast after the Reading game for my sins, as some may say. I have already had the opportunity to answer this, but you guys weren't on, and it's not lost on me. This is our final podcast of 2025, which has been quite an insane year. It's ended in exactly the same way it started, with a bundled home set piece giving us a last-minute draw at Home Park, just as it did in the 2-2 against Bristol City on the 1st of January. So I'm going to come to both of you now and say, again, it could be for good, bad, or both, but looking for highlights of the last 12 months and things that have really stuck in your mind. And Sam, I'll come to you first. It can be Argyle related, it can be Argyle life related. And I assure you that the names Hugo Viana and Mark Poom are very much not off the table when you're speaking about your highlights. But I'll let you take the floor. Last 12 months.
Ricky Sabrasia.
Of course. Yeah, there was always going to be one more. Yeah. Our TalkSport Cup run, that one, for those not informed, and you can watch that all back on the TalkSport YouTube channel. I'd encourage you to do that right up to the semi-final. Anyway, Sam, moment from the last 12 months. What sticks in your mind?
Yeah, the Argyle life related, the TalkSport quiz run was incredible, and I want to echo. I wasn't on the post Reading pod, but I did watch it back. So yeah, thank you again to John and Sarah for your fantastic hospitality with that. Obviously, the FCAs was amazing. Bronze award winners. Maybe next year we can go for silver or even gold. But incredible to get the bronze. Met some lovely people there. Had a great evening. And I think the way, again, it's just been another, I think, great year, I think, for the podcast and for Argyle life in general. So it's been great just seeing the site grow and win an award, and obviously to be able to come on here with you guys and sort of vent and have a, group therapy after losses and group celebration after the occasional wins. As to the Argyle highlights, I'll allude to what I said. And I think I said it on the Sunday after the Doncaster pod, didn't I, Graham? That for something that and been such a terrible, terrible year for the club on a wider level, if you just put together a 7 or 8 minute montage clip of the year in general, you'd think it's been one of our best, years we've ever had as a club. Beating Brentford away, absolutely incredible. Beating Liverpool home, that will live in the memory forever. We've had 2 5-1 wins, for goodness sake, against Millwall and Doncaster, and a 4-0 once we're at it. We've had an incredibly dramatic 3-2 win at Luton, which I think left everybody's nerves in the ground virtually shredded by the end. That's not to mention the 3 home wins in a row of Norwich, Sheffield United and Coventry, which were all excellent home wins under Muslich. The last-minute equaliser at Sunderland, for goodness sake, who are now fighting for the Champions League, which we're looking at going down the League Two. It's been, and I've got the one I always mentioned that I said was underrated in one of my all-time Argyle games ever when we did our season awards clips back in May. It's the West Brom game. The fact that it was then something absolutely silly, 15 league. I know we had the Brentford win, but it was 15 league games without a win. Ryan Hardy, who was pretty much the most, apart from Joe Edwards, I guess, the second most symbolic player of our rise up through the leagues. He's been with us in League Two all the way to the Championship. Ryan Hardy, who looked like he was completely washed after that first half of the season, scoring those 2 goals and turning the Malumbu chant back on the West Brom fans, and then the great idea from whoever at Argyle to play that song through the tannoy at the end. It was just an incredible football moment, and it kind of makes it crazy that there have been so many brilliant moments this year when pretty much like everything apart from that long list of stuff I've said has been bad. Like, I think this has got to be the calendar year with like one of the fewest draws in it. Like, we've only had like this season the draw at home to Wycombe yesterday, the draw at home to Wigan at the start of October, and then the most recent draw before that would have been the 0-0 draw to Tom Cleverley's Watford, of all teams. It was the last draw before that. But yeah, like there's been so few draws, so many losses, so many really bad losses as well. It's just been a year of feast or famine, but much more often famine, I'm afraid to say. And I just hope that 2026 is a better year on the pitch for the team, because we have now had, in terms of calendar years, 2 stinkers in a row. 2024 was bad, and 2025 has been bad. So it would be great if we could have a better calendar year, even if it's just, creep towards the top half, come about 11th, 12th, 13th even, and then next season, this time next year, end the season at least in and around the playoff zone of League One, I should say. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not, but I don't know. I guess as much as it's true that the good times feel like they're going to go on forever until they don't, I guess that's true of the bad times as well. They sometimes feel like they're going to go on forever, and then something happens to turn things around. And I guess my more optimistic side would hope that could happen, but I don't think it's showing any signs of happening yet. So yeah, there we are. It's been quite a year. Great year for, I think, in terms of my personal experience of going to football, with all the experiences I've just mentioned, meeting more great people, going on the banana bus, going on the pie face vlogs, which I absolutely love doing. So, and in terms of a personal year for me, experiencing football, it's been a great year. In terms of Argyle, it's been some fantastic highlights, but far more dismal lowlights. It's probably my summary of the year.
Yeah, let's hope, as you say, that 2026 marks a change. And I'd like to think it can't keep being this bad, can it? It can. We'll see. Graham, Sam's taken a lot of them there.
He has. I've got
2025.
I mean,
go for it.
To misquote the great David Coleman, remarkable is all you can say about 2025. And I went starting with being on this podcast when we all talking about Sam's favourite, Shuey, coming back into the fold on his way up to Brentford. And then that Romano tweet saying Muslich was going to be appointed, and everybody scrabbling around saying, who the hell is he? And I think, was it Nick Saunders-Smith, I think, did an analysis of how he played, and we all held our head in our hands. Oh, my God. And then that talk to the players that went viral. I mean, you can't underestimate. I know he perhaps didn't live up to the hype, but boy, that was impressive. And you can see why such talk impressed the board to favour him over Shuey at the time. So that was a moment for me. I mean, that was, I think I played about 4 or 5 times just to listen to it, because no Argyle manager's ever spoken like that in the persuasive way. It's a shame that it didn't necessarily translate itself to the pitch. But in fairness, I think over the course of the season, perhaps if we had 2 or 3 more games, I think we might have survived in the Championship.
Absolutely, it did kind of transfer.
I mean, in fact, I think we've got Brad Collins to thank for getting us relegated when he came out of his area and
that pub I was in before the Preston game when that
was just dreadful, and also
horrible.
But actually, for me, the highlight, I know Liverpool would be a highlight, but when you look at the team that started for Liverpool, it was a lot of fringe players. Let's say, yes, he had to get a few players on at the end. But apart from the penalty, did we really look like scoring? For me, actually, and the...
To be fair, Graham, they had like Diaz and
but I mean, but they're given the squad they've got. Players. But for me, it was actually Manchester City. Being in the Etihad in the upper tier, I think I've forgotten, we had 9,000 or something like that. Huge support. I think it was 9,000.
Far off, yeah.
And then we scored. and we deserved to be leading that first half. And I'm shame we just conceded that goal just before half time. And we took them all the way for 80 minutes against the best team in Europe, Plymouth Argyle, in that stadium. And that, when I reflect upon it, I put it above the Liverpool game for that reason alone. It's a shame that they got the third, which they didn't deserve. But if you look at this Man City team, unlike Liverpool, that was pretty much their strongest team. And it was a terrific performance. And it was a real night to be proud walking around Manchester that evening. And the number of City fans and, to be fair, United fans congratulated us on what we achieved. And I will mention the 5-1 win at home to Millwall, which was like completely out of the blue. And we played well. And there was a belief we were going to survive. And I think it was the Derby game, as somebody just said, where I think we got it back to 2-2, and Bundu hit that free kick right in the top corner, and the keeper just got it. If that had gone in, we were on 3-2. And as it happens on the points, we would have got 3 points. Derby would have lost 3 points, and we would have stayed up. So again, that
could have been,
that Bundu, save from Bundu, was another moment of the season, and that was the moment for me that when we walked out after that game, I thought we're not going to do it, and we didn't.
Yeah, well, ups and downs, as we say, mainly downs, as we know. But I think, those heights of 2025, Liverpool being the obvious, as well as Manchester City and the way we played that day, it's going to take a fair bit of beating. But no more. We are done with 2025. Our next game will be in 2026, and it's not too far away. Sam, I imagine you'll be travelling up on New Year's Day, bright and early, to watch Argyle face Saxon Earlys, Jordan Houghton's Stevenage. You going up with any confidence? And I'm going to pair that with another question that came in earlier. Formation and lineup. How do we change things? We know we've got the what we assume is going to be Owen Aseni unavailable, but Joe Raw's likely to be back. How are you feeling about the journey, and how are you feeling about the team?
Yeah, Banana Bus sets off at 5:20 from Plymouth on New Year's Day morning. So that will be, I don't know if I'll even bother staying up to see the New Year in. I'll probably be awake just because
priorities and all
kind of sleeping pattern, but I certainly won't be going out drinking or anything like that. I'll be saving myself for New Year's Day. How am I feeling? I mean, to be fair, away from home, we seem quite a bit better than we do at home. Stevenage, conversely, haven't actually won at home since October. So there are reasons to suggest that we might get something out of the game. Stevenage are, I think, to be fair, Alex Revell's doing a superb job this season. They're punching hugely above their weight. To answer the question, why 5:20, not 5:30, it's just simply the fact that the bus doesn't start from Plymouth. It starts in St Austell, and there's obviously pickups along the way. So that's just the way it is. That's
kicking off from St Austell at a more rounded time. Is that what we're saying?
I would say so, yeah. I would probably be about maybe like 5:30 at St Austell. I'm at 4:30 at St Austell, which gets to Madden roundabout at 5:20 with a couple of pickups in there to drag it out a little bit. So, going back to the game, I think there is every chance we can get a draw or even a win out of the game. I do think that for all I bemoan the 4-4-2 at home, I don't think it's the right formation at home at all. It doesn't open teams up. It's just 2 banks of 4. It's very tactically basic. It's very 2002. It's kind of like turning up to a nightclub in this day and age wearing flares like you're in the 80s. It's very out of place. It's very basic in terms of tactical complexity. It doesn't really do a lot against teams with a more developed style of play. Away from home, that being said, when you don't have to actually control games, you control the midfield, I do think it's doing okay. We've had 4 wins in a row now. Look, even then, I do think that 4 wins in a row flatters us slightly. Wycombe and Port Vale, I certainly don't think we deserved 6 points out of those 2 games. I think both of them could have gone either way, but we got 2 1-0 wins. Orient, we did very much deserve to win, but they played pretty much their B team for the Pizza Cup game. Doncaster, yes, we were actually excellent, fair play. But, overall, even though I think 4 wins in a row away from home flatters us a bit, I'd also be churlish to deny that the 4-4-2 is working much better on the road than it is at home. So realistically, I don't think there's much point discussing what the formation would be. If I was the manager in a fantasy world, I would probably have tried to implement a 4-3-3 quite a while ago and phased it in properly over time and actually stuck with it. Realistically, you know as well as I do, we're going to be playing 4-4-2. So I imagine it's going to probably be after his relatively commendable performance yesterday. It will be Pepple up front with Tolai. Then you're probably looking at, I don't know, similar-ish team. Belarus might come back in. I do think, what I meant to say this earlier, the problem with having those two, and Dan Ellard on the previous podcast called it to a T, exactly what the problem would be. Too narrow. They both try and come inside. Amici, very left-footed player playing on the right. Mumba, very right-footed player playing on the left. I feel you can have one like that for a bit of variation, but if you have both like that, what happens? They both try and come inside. We get congested in the middle of the field. The fullbacks get exposed as well on counter-attacks because the players are always in the bloody middle whenever they counter. All you need, unfortunately, when you have, I'm a little bit more agnostic on 4-4-2. Like that, I think there are very much, sometimes it can work. But if you're going to play it with 2 inside players, no, that's far too narrow. And all you need is 2 good wingers, and that can obliterate us on the counter. And I think that's the concern, because Stevenage do play with 4-2-3-1, so they do play with wingers. So we cannot play Amici and Mumba. If we're going to play Amici and Mumba, swap them around, because at least, I know it's not ideal, but at least then you'll have them both on the right side. So I would probably say, after that little ramble, Belarus back in for Amici, because I think Belarus was good at Doncaster. I'd probably keep Mumba where he is on left midfield, just based on the improved performance in the second half. I would pick Law McKay. He won't do so because he's going back to Middlesbrough inevitably. So probably, I guess, dare we possibly think that Boateng might get dropped? I know he seems to be Cleverly's absolute favourite player who he plays all the time. I think he's one of the big weak spots in our team. I've said so quite a long time. I thought he had a very poor game yesterday. So ideally, I'd go Rawls and McCabe. If not McCabe, Rawls and Wiradoo. I think Wiradoo was better of the two. Still, a couple of times I've got to say with Wiradoo, some of his passes were a bit overhit. I don't think his passing is quite that great, but he's a good ball carrier. And as Adam said, he won a lot of duels, so he had a pretty decent game. So yeah, I'd play probably Rawls and Wiradoo, if not McCabe. So realistically, Belarus, Rawls, Wiradoo, Mumba, Pepple and Tolai. And then I think I would probably then go, I don't think Brendan Galloway will be back in time. Certainly not in any fit state of jet lag to play. So I would, yeah.
Is there a big slight difference to Morocco? He might be all right.
Maybe. Well, if Galloway's fit, then I'd put Galloway in at left back if he is fit enough to play. Because I think Sorinola not been great on the left. And I think Joe Edwards really needs the game off, because I think he looked visibly knackered. He looked absolutely torn open a couple of times. And look, I think we are seeing a gradual decline in Joe Edwards. I've said that a few times this season, as much as he's still got leadership. We are seeing his legs start to go a little bit. I do think that when he's had a proper rest, he's at his best. But when he's played Doncaster on the Saturday, Reading on the Friday, Wycombe on the Monday, 3 games in 9 days, it's a bit too much for him. If you then ask him to play 4 games in 12 days, that's definitely too much for him. So I would go probably Sorinola, shift him over to right back, Galloway in at left back, I guess. And if Galloway's not fit to play, then I think you begrudgingly have to keep Sorinola at left back and Suchin at right back, I guess, would probably be what it would have to be, with Pleggy and Mitchell in the middle, assuming Pleggy's fit. And if Pleggy's not fit, then Ross and Mitchell. Yeah, it's potentially going to be a little bit slim pickings again, but that's how it would have to be, I think.
Yeah, if spots and maybes, and there will only be one way to find out. Graham, same questions to you. Are you heading up to Stevenage, and do you agree or disagree with Sam's lineup choices?
I'm not. It's going to be Sky Plus for me. So
yeah, you and me both.
It's an interesting one. Apparently, Brendan Galloway's flies into the country tomorrow is going to meet up with the team hotel on Thursday. So he wouldn't be doing that if, he says Thursday, but I think he's meeting up the players on Thursday. So he wouldn't be doing that if he wasn't in contention. It's only like somebody playing in Europe and coming back and then playing.
Yeah, through it. I kind of didn't.
I would play him. I mean, he's been playing in the AFCON a high standard. I say playing. I think he played 1.5 games, didn't he, or something like that. So, so he's been in that environment. So he should be good enough for League One on that basis. I would start with Galloway. I don't think Plaguey's going to make the game. I think he was visibly suffering towards the end of the game yesterday. So I expect Ross to fill in for him. I agree with Sam. Joe, I don't think can do 3 games in the space of time that he's had. I would put him as come on as a sort of finisher, if you like, in the last 20, 30 minutes of the game. So Sorinola, if only for his sort of his set pieces have measurably improved. I thought his corners yesterday were pretty good. So midfield all day long, Rules and Wiradu. I'm sorry, Sam. It's not a game for your favourite Law McCabe. And Amici's not going to make it. He was blowing hard after 60 minutes yesterday. I don't think he's going to make a starting lineup. I was pleased that Tegan got on and actually had a reasonable impact on the game. I wouldn't be averse to seeing him started, but I think it might be a cotton wool job for Tegan if the rumours are true. So maybe not. And up top, Talai and Pepple, obviously. So, and as somebody just said, Joe Rawls is the obvious captain. And I think it would be the 2 banks of 4, whether it's 4-4-1-1 or 4-4-2. Don't know. I think probably more 4-4-1-1 with Pepple ahead and Talai running from behind and beyond. And Stevenage won 1 win in the last 6. They've dropped out of the playoff places. Their home record is I think they've only scored 11 goals, I think, and conceded 5. So it augurs for a low-scoring game, and that's set up for a 1-0 win for us.
Yeah, what a way to bring in the new year that would be. Yeah, we'll do our score predictions shortly. I've just got a few questions to go through, and one that actually comes through quite nicely. This can be for either of you. I'll open the floor. Is there any love for starting Ashby Hammond ahead of Connor Hazard in this Stevenage game?
I would, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, Connor Hazard has presided over conceding more goals than any goalkeeper per game in the league. So that's a starting point. The thing for Connor, I mean, neither of them control their 6-yard box. But what Ashby Hammond has, his precision kicking left or right, is far more suited to our playing 2 up top, because he can pinpoint the ball either over the top of a high line defence, which he's done a few times, or he can hit it wide with accuracy. Connor has a habit of, he elevates, his kicks go up in the air and sort of drop like a stone, whereas Ashby Hammond is more, almost like, I won't call him like Amici, who pings it, but he is pretty close to pinging it. And yeah, I mean, if he hadn't made that mistake at Bristol Rovers, I think the management would have a lot more confidence in him challenging Connor Hazard. But because at home, at least, the crowd is so frustrated with Connor. Yeah, that his slowness to move the ball forward, the deliberation, the lack of coming out even to the edge of his 6-yard box. Yes, he's a reasonable shot stopper, but I do wonder, actually. I mean, his contract's out end of the season. Northern Ireland are in a playoff spot for the World Cup. Is there somebody perhaps in Scotland that might be interested in him and he might get more exposure at a higher level? He's a likable bloke, but he does nothing for my confidence behind let's not forget, a small defence in height-wise and physicality. So it really demands that your keeper is strong in coming for crosses and punching away, and Connor hasn't shown that in recent games.
I would
pass on to Sam because I get the sense you
sympathetic.
disagree.
I would be somewhat sympathetic to all these arguments if the alternative wasn't Luca Ashby-Hammond, because I agree that Hazard has been playing pretty poorly, but I do think with Hazard, although all the downsides, you can get some excellent saves out of him. At Wycombe, he made a couple. At Doncaster, yes, even though we were 4-1 up and the game was already virtually gone, he made 2 very good ones. And I do think the Welsh Hazard's command of his area is not great at all. I do think it's better than Ashby-Hammond's. Like, the Bristol Rovers shambles you already mentioned. Also at Orient, there was one he went flying off his line for and just didn't get remotely anywhere near. Whereas I do think with Hazard, if in doubt, he stays on his line. That's not good, but it's better than like flying out and dropping it into the net, or it's better than like flying out and not getting anywhere near it. So I would play Hazard. Probably more. That probably says more about Ashby-Hammond than it does about Hazard, if I'm being completely truthful.
Yeah, Sam, I would just challenge you because we were both behind the goal at the Luton game. And that's when actually I think Ashby-Hammond had his best game. And I was surprised at how much he controlled the defence, how much he shouted, because, Connor doesn't. I don't think he is very commanding vocally at all. But Luca was in that Luton game, was very vocal. And it surprised me and impressed me. And that's another reason why I would be tempted to consider him. I don't know whether Connor's going to go. If we're going to get any money for him, he's got to go in January because he's out of contract. But
look, I can see the temptation of it for sure. Because I do agree that Ashby-Hammond's kicking is marginally better. I do think it's come. It was dreadful when he first.
Yeah, it was. But it's not marginal. So now, he particularly if you look at the Virtue Trophy games, he's kicking, and the one thing he's really good at is kicking long and over the top of a high line defence, and that's where Talai could. He hasn't really played with Talai to benefit from that move, but he can hit it in a way that Connor can't.
I don't disagree with that. I would be lying if I said no part of me is slightly tempted, but on balance, who do I trust more? Who would I worry about less being in goal? For me, it still Hazard. Just thinking back to the 2 examples where he's gone off his line, once we conceded, once he very nearly did. Even like the Leighton Orient, the long range shot that he spilled back out and then made a good follow-up save. Yes, part 2 of the save was very good, but it all came about because he spilled a kind of 25-yarder right back out to the player. And I just think, again, with Connor Hazard with that, he would just hold on to it, or he'd at least know to tip it round the post rather than tip it back out to the player. I think, and Connor Hazard as well, I guess, for me, the other thing is, maybe he's just got, a little bit more credit in the bank from last season where he was generally very good. I don't trust either of them much as a goalkeeper, to be clear. And I do think that amidst all the many January signings we need to make, I would very much like to see us add a new first-choice keeper in January, because Hazard has been playing below his best level all season. Ashby-Hammond, to be fair, has probably played to his best level, but his best level isn't comparatively very good. So I think you've got one who's playing a bit, who has got talent and has got pedigree, but it's playing below their level. Then you've got the other one who, to be fair to him, I think is absolutely busting a gut, but just isn't naturally very good. I think I hear all you're saying, particularly about the long kicking. Yeah, I would agree that that's come on Tuesday for Ashby-Hammond. I would just play Hazard because I know it sounds bad and it sounds to be a negative and getting on his back, but it's the only way I can say it, being brutally honest if I can. I just don't trust him not to do anything a bit crazy, Ashby-Hammond. He just worries me too much. And for that reason, I'd play Hazard.
There we go. Yeah. So a split panel on that one. I think I lean slightly more towards Sam on this one, but I can see the arguments that have been made, and I think either could be upgraded upon, shall we say, if given the opportunity. Just a couple more. One from Superintendent here. Caleb Roberts. Anyone know what's going on? Is he injured? Is he unfancied? Is it
It's
just
not
the fact that we've
selected, I
got so
think.
many that are options? He says, knowing Joe Rolls was suspended. Just assuming he's not being picked. I mean, yeah, we've heard no other news, have we? I'll send this one towards you, Sam. One we got on Twitter actually before the stream went live, from Chris, who's asked, has Tom Cleverley improved any player during his time at Argyle, would you say?
Not really. Not really. I think Boateng, if anything, has got worse. He's never been able to control the ball very well, and I think his control's got even worse. I mean, Tolai came in and hit the ground running. Really, yeah. His goal scoring has maybe got better. Like the first few games, he only got like 2 goals in his first 6. So you could maybe say Tolai, but I don't really think that's such down to Cleverley. He's just a player of absolute supreme confidence. Not many, I would say, he's improved. No, I mean the only one I would come close to staying at forward, a player who's currently injured, which is Bradley Ibrahim. I thought the first 4 or 5 games, when we lost the first 4, even in the win against Blackpool, I thought he was an absolute liability. He was running around like a headless chicken, leaving huge spaces behind, not really doing much positive in the final third. But then he had a good run of games, good goal against Stockport, a couple of goals against Luton, began to use the ball a bit better in the final third. He did still have a poor game at Exeter, even after that improvement. But I think Tolai, whilst he's having a fantastic season, because even at Port Vale, he only got about 14 in League Two, and he's on about 11 already in League One, and he's not even played half the season for us. But I think Tolai is more just down to a young player naturally getting better and getting more confident. I think in terms of where you can see the result of coaching, there's not very many.
Can I ask for one, Sam?
Go on.
Owen Aseni.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'll give that, because I think with Aseni, you're very much seeing a player who's actually getting smarter on the pitch, working on his skill set. It's not just, the kind of, the natural aura of a player getting better like Tolai would, which I think you'd probably see with any manager. And yeah, you know what? And I think with Aseni, I've said a lot of positive stuff about him in recent weeks, so it would be churlish of me to deny any credit to Tom Cleverley for that. So yeah, I'll go with Ibrahim and Aseni, but you've got maybe 2 players, maybe at an absolute push 3, who've been improved by the coaching. But if they've all been improved by the coaching and we're still as poor as we are, then that says a lot about the tactics, doesn't it? Because there's 2 components to management. Coaching's only one of them, tactics is the big other. So if the coaching is good enough to improve a couple of players, then something's going wrong in the tactical side of it, isn't it? For us to still be as bad as what we are.
Yeah,
and in the fitness, I should add.
Yeah, and there's plenty of that as well.
Him and Aseni, the 2 players we mentioned, are now both
who are currently injured, and who knows for how long in at least one of those cases. Yeah, I should say as well that a lot of the comments that we got through on that question were mentioning Aseni above all others as well. So I suppose there is some credit due there. Just a couple more. Graham, I'm going to come to you for both of them, because one is directed at you specifically. From friend of the show, I say friend of the show, he's hosted more of these shows than I have in Stan Beale. Are you aware of what the 6-7 is?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
I heard it on the radio, and I did quiz myself, what is it? But I couldn't be bothered to look it up.
Do you know what? That's absolutely fine. We'll keep it that way, and I'm happy for you. A more
can
serious
you tell me? Do you know?
I suppose nobody really knows where it started from. Well, nobody above the age of about 13. In my experience, but you have basically just got to do this and say 6-7.
Is it something that Keir Starmer's just done or something like that? Is it?
Keir Starmer has joined the craze of the 6-7. Actually,
that's where I thought I heard it.
Yeah,
probably why I switched off at that very moment.
So it could well be it. Yeah, so
Keir Starmer and TikTok are not natural bedfellows, unlike Sam, of course.
Okay, yeah, no, we know exactly who goes viral on TikTok, and there's apparently going to be no one on the left of your screen this evening. Second one that is on the screen now, a little bit more serious for you, Graham. Based on the transfer window that we know is imminently upon us, Cleverley's comments in the press conference kind of links back to, I think, what you were saying about Derek Adams being at every game, when he's mentioned taking players potentially from teams already in the league. does that, well, I suppose you can take it in any way. Does it concern you, or does it give you, or does it comfort you in the sense that these targets have already been identified?
It actually comforts me, but it's going to be one of two ways, isn't it? One, a fringe player that's out of contract and can't get into the team, which we can pick up relatively easily. I'd find it difficult to believe that we would get somebody of quality on loan from a League One team, which leaves us, can we afford to buy somebody from a League One team? And if so, how much? So the three options, I was quite intrigued by that. I mean, for me, the obvious player to get in for what we need up top, at least, is Jetta. And we were in for him a year ago. And I think we made inquiries pre-July this season, but County were holding out for more. I'm not sure his contract situation. I've got a feeling might have a year extension in the offing. I don't know.
I might have heard similar, yeah.
Yeah, but he's got, I think, six goals in 8 games or 9 games since he's come back. He's 6'4". He holds the ball up, he scores. He's what we need up top. But for me, we just got to get some wing backs of stature and height and physicality, because that's our weakness, and another centre back to cover Pleggy when he can't play.
Deal. Yeah, I think that summarises it quite nicely. So we are exactly 101 minutes into this. That was a great 45. No, we're not. Are we 101 minutes? No, we're not. No, we're not. We're 81. I've put 100 minutes in an hour there.
Oh yeah, 80.
Yeah. So we're 81. Yeah, 83. We're around 80 minutes in. So I will not be putting a stoppage time.
Well, if you put 100 minutes in now, it'd be 121 minutes in. So even by your own calculation, you've got it wrong.
Yeah. What have I done? This whole
You're not
year,
Mickey Duff in disguise, are you? I'm trying to extend
it's
the
something
time.
along the numbers 6 and 7 have clearly fried my brain, as they have for a whole generation. But hey, we've reached this point in the show. Has anybody got any other business or anything they wanted to bring up before we sign off for the year?
Just wish everyone a happy new year, and let's hope 2026 is better than 2025.
Absolutely.
Here. Happy New Year, everyone. See you at Stevenage, to those of you who are going. Been a pleasure waffling to you on your Sunday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, whatever night of the year. I don't know if we're doing a post-Stevenage one, because I'm working late on Friday night, and I think a lot of people said they can't do it, so maybe we'll do it on the Saturday or something, or maybe
combine it with the
we might just
post Burton.
We might just combine it with post Burton and do that in a one-er potentially.
And just a shout out for the women's game on Saturday, home to Watford, which is a big game.
Advertised a double header, haven't they, of the women's game on Saturday and the men's game on the Sunday. So every chance you can enjoy a weekend of home park action.
Has home park ever been used 2 consecutive days for Plymouth Argyle teams, Sam?
Probably not. What comes to mind. No. Adam, how many are watching live before we go?
We have apparently 785 viewers at the moment, of which we are thankful to you all, and no doubt more to come in future on all your podcast platforms, whatever's down on the screen there. Does Aaron usually read them out? I don't know. I don't care at this point.
He does.
He does.
At the bottom.
There we go. In which case, if you want to know about them, go back to a previous podcast and hear what Aaron's had to say. No, honestly, I'm going to reiterate the message there. Have a wonderful New Year's Eve with whatever you're doing, and just a message of thanks, really, to the panelists this evening who've made my job of stepping into this hot seat as easy as it could possibly be, to every one of you who's with us at the moment, and to everyone who will join us in those numbers a little bit later on, be it on the commute, be it whenever you usually listen to your podcasts. We will be there, and anyone really who's been with us throughout the year, because I think, as we've discussed, it's been quite the year for Argyle Life and quite the year for Plymouth Argyle as well, both good and bad. The football has not always been fun, but I've certainly enjoyed and had a ton of fun doing everything for Argyle Life, and I trust that it's been the same for all the other panelists.
And well done, Adam, for all that you've written.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's not stopping anytime soon. Sam, if you're around, the Stevenage preview is nearly available. So yeah, it's not stopping. But yes, just as I say, a genuine thank you to all of you, and we'll be back in 2026. Will it be Friday? Will it be Saturday? Will it be after Burton? That's above my pay grade to decide, I'm afraid. But we will be back with you after that game, and it's been a pleasure being with you this evening. Cheers all.
Good night.
See you soon.
Good night.
Cheers.